right around the corner. Mr. Donald Duke, the candidate of the SDP, what will be your economic plan to ensure that Nigeria is not left behind?
It's all about productivity. We have a dismal productive base as a nation. We like to style ourselves as the largest economy on the continent at 400 billion with a population of 200 million. But just take South Africa, $375 billion economy with 57 million people. So it's all about productivity. There are principally four things you do to enhance the productivity of an individual. Skill-based, not just education. It's no longer, education is not as it was before, literacy. No, it has to be functional, it has to be skilled. Health, requisite infrastructure, and in the modern world, and you mentioned it, artificial intelligence, you must embrace technology. But I want to say this, all these sound good. You can do all these things, you can talk about property rights and innovation, as Mr. Moghalu said, but they come to nothing if access to capital is dismal. And that's what the problem in Nigeria. Affordability and access to capital is very low in Nigeria. And I'm intrigued that Mr. Moghalu said this, because for a couple of years he was Deputy Governor of Central Bank. And he was in charge of financial institutions. Under his supervision, interest rates in Nigeria were hovering between 25 and 30%.
Please raise your mic so that we can hear you.
Interest rates in Nigeria were hovering between 25 and 30%. You cannot grow a country where 80% of the population are dependent on the goodwill of maybe 20% on expensive capital. It's unheard of. In some countries of the world, developed nations, interest rate is almost zero because you want people to go out there, lend money, borrow money, and enhance their businesses. But here we are. We raise the bar so high that the preponderance of us cannot access capital at all.
Right, thank you very much. To the candidate of the Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, Tokwe Fasua. Well, so much has been said about Nigeria being the poverty capital of the world. I'm sure you've heard that over and over again, that it's almost dizzying. That you have an economically active population of between 15 and 64 that is largely unproductive, just like Mr. Donald Duke has just said. Now, how are you going to galvanize all of this to make sure that you actually drive the economy in the direction that it should go?
Thank you very much. I like the word you use, galvanize. I'll speak very quickly because it's a loaded question. You know, apart from actually putting this government under immense pressure for them to review our budget from 8.8 trillion to 15 trillion naira, when I found out that our budget is only 1/6 of the budget of South Africa, and then we claim to be the largest economy in Africa, I don't believe that Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, first and foremost. The budget for Cape Town City alone is $3 billion, and there are less than 3 million people in Cape Town. I went ahead and checked in Angola. Their budget is twice Nigeria's budget. There's only 25 million people living in Angola. Kenya, 50 million people, $29 billion. Nigeria is in reverse at 180 kilometers per hour. And that's the reason why we are here.
Please, no cheering and no jeering.
This is why we are here. No, I'm just going to add that to my seconds anyway. Anyway, just kidding. So, apart from that, the point is that I've also put this government under pressure, and it's an international issue. Nigeria should be growing at 15% per annum. We should be doing double digits. And you know,
how will that translate into jobs? This is about job creation.
Absolutely.
That's the question.
That's the visioning. All right, you're taking my seconds now.
Go ahead.
But this is the visioning, right? It's about the visioning. First of all, before you can achieve anything, you have to vision and vision where you need to be. All right? If you're having a dismal budget that's smaller than what you had in the 1980s, when Nigeria was 70 million people, and now we're 190 million, you can't find the jobs. But let me say this about the jobs. It's not only about capital. There's that overemphasis on capital. We don't even understand capital. Human capital, labor, is used to replace physical capital these days and vice versa. And so I believe that the biggest capital we have are young people, which we should unleash now. Part of what we're going to do in my government, we're going to create a certain policy called the Cleanest, Safest, and the Most Organized Country in Africa project, where we're going to plug in our youth, because there's a lot of jobs, even in the public sector, in environment, in security, in education, some of which we're going to be able to talk about as we go along. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. the candidate of the Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party there, Tokwe Fasua. Now to you, Mr. Feladuro Toye. How exactly, what do you even think is fundamentally wrong with our economy? Do you understand why we are where we are, you know, as far as job creation is concerned, in a way that you'll be able to proffer solutions? And how soon, if you become president, can we begin to see a change as far as jobs is concerned? I mean, you have a situation where unemployment rate right now is quite high, about 20 million Nigerians unemployed, or some would say 20.9%, while about 55% of the youth population is unemployed, or even underemployed or unemployable.
Well, you asked a really great question, and every Nigerian is listening to this very, very, very important moment. You've asked, what is the greatest problem that we have with creating jobs? And I would say it's our political class. It's those who have ruled us with the intent of manufacturing unemployment, and they've done a damn good job at it. In other words, they've created unemployment so that the people, the young people of this country who form the majority of this nation and the voting public will become so impoverished that election cycle after election cycle, they will be looking for 500 naira to eat. And when they come with their 500 naira, having not had jobs for 4 years, that they will then be re-elected back and they will continue to hold power. Unemployment in Nigeria is man-made, and it is created by the people that have ruled us for the last especially 20 years. So let me tell you what we're going to do to turn it around. First of all, we've got to understand that everything your eye sees is jobs. It is this microphone is jobs. This mobile phone is jobs. This pen is jobs. What you're wearing is jobs. Any nation that does not manufacture cannot create jobs. And so it's important that we are able to create things and make things that will build our economy, but more importantly, build the products that we need to survive. So what are we going to do? The ANN-led government is going to create a special business intervention fund of 1 trillion naira. And that fund will be used to power the establishment of 1 million businesses that will have business plans committed to hire at least five people in each one of them. So within the first 1 year, the ANN-led government will create 5 million jobs. In addition to simply by just cleaning up our database today and connecting those people who have skills with the people who need to have people to employ, we can create at least 3 million jobs. On top of that, there are opportunities to create 10 million jobs in agriculture, 7 million jobs in housing, 3 million jobs in road construction, 1 million teachers will be employed, and through technology and entertainment, we will create 4 million jobs. So we have already mapped out all these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria there, Mr. Feladuro Toye. Now to the candidate of the Action Democratic Party, Engineer Yabagi Sani. Jobs, 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 that is what's on the mind of Nigerians, especially the youth. If you go all across the country, you find jobless youth totally idle. Do you have the magic wand to change the narrative as far as job creation is concerned?
Yes, very much so. The symbol of our party is a book, meaning that education is very important. When you have educated population, creating jobs is no longer a problem. We also understand the fact that insecurity is a big problem that we have in this country, because 70% of our population who happen to be farmers today cannot go to their farms. So we must solve the problem of insecurity so that we can grow jobs. People don't have to come to the urban centers, you know, and to be living in squalors or something like that. So our government is going to run on 5 elements. Capacity. We are going to grow capacity of the government. We are going to have a vision that everybody can key into. We are going to have credibility, and we are also going to have organization and plan. That is what this present government lacks. No vision, no capacity, no organization, no credibility. The moment you have that, investments will chase you, because foreign investments are looking for destinations that have the kind of fundamentals that Nigeria has. Nigeria is big in terms of resources, in terms of human capital, in terms of the mere size of the country. You produce anything in Nigeria, 200 million people are there. If they are earning living wage or living in a manner that they have purchasing power, you grow this economy. Our economy, 2014, was about almost $600 billion. Today, our economy has shrunk to about $360 billion, which means you have lost almost 30% of your economy, and you say we're not in recession. We're actually in recession. CBN has come out to tell us that we are back in recession. They didn't say it directly, but it's true. So what we are going to do is that we are going to take advantage of where we have comparative advantage, which is the oil and gas. We are not going to take jumbo loans from countries like China and we become slaves in 20 years or 10 years' time. We are going to grow that economy through internally generated revenue from oil and gas, plow it into agriculture, housing, education, and also infrastructure development.
All right, thank you very much. The candidate of the Action Democratic Party, the engineer Yabagi Yusuf Sani. Now to the candidate of the African Action Congress, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. What really can you do to turn around the situation in providing jobs for the teeming population of young people that I believe you are very concerned about? More than half of them are jobless.
Thank you. And let me say here that there's no economic philosophy in the world that can provide jobs when you don't have electricity. That is number one. Or that can provide you jobs when you don't have infrastructure. In fact, Bill Gates came to Nigeria and said to our leaders that as long as you are not investing in your youth, forget about economic development. So why are we here wasting our time dancing around the issue? When countries have problems about creating jobs, they invest in public works projects. So what are we going to do? In the power sector, we are increasing our power generation from 5,000 to 17,000. That will provide over 2 million jobs in the solar energy sector alone, renewables. We are going to double our infrastructure. There are 202 federal kilometers of 202,000 kilometers of federal highways. We want to increase that to 400,000 kilometers. Our railway system is about 3,775 kilometers. We want to double that. We want to provide drinking water, and the federal government must be the one driving the development. We must invest in our youth. We must invest in our people. As long as we don't invest in our education, we are also wasting time. What are we going to do? We are hiring 200,000 teachers. Immediately we come into office. And going from that, we are hiring 160,000 health workers to go to the rural areas, 200 per local government, because health is wealth. The problem with our country is that we have not placed ourselves in a position to produce because we don't invest in our people, because our leaders don't love us. And it is not true that we don't have economic philosophers. Every 4 years, the World Bank sends out here somebody they said is the best economist at the World Bank. But they leave us broken because they bring in here the structural adjustment program, what Fela and Nicola will call suck African people at the expense of our country. So what we're going to do is provide jobs in all these sectors and make Nigeria a place that is workable for Nigerians.
All right, thank you very much. The candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, Omoyele Sowore. Now, you just touched on infrastructure. Now, Nigeria has an infrastructure deficit that is in the trillions. Experts say that Nigeria, that's according to the African Development Bank, that Nigeria needs about $100 billion every year to close the infrastructure gap. Now, how would you finance this huge capital that we need to fix the infrastructure deficit, whether it's in the area of rail, roads, and any infrastructure that you want to talk about?
Yes.
Kingsley Moghalu, please.
Yes, the YPP government will do a number of things to be able to finance infrastructure much more effectively. Let me first say that the current government has borrowed $12 billion over the past 3 years. No jobs have been created. Let's be very clear. So without the foundations, you will go nowhere. Now, on the question of financing infrastructure specifically, my government will turn the New Development Bank of Nigeria into what looks like the BNDES of Brazil, a super development bank that will finance long-term infrastructure in Nigeria. And that bank will have a charge on the consolidated revenue fund of this country. That's what that bank should be doing, not what it is doing now. What it should be doing, what it's doing now in terms of trying to give loans to small businesses, is what the venture capital fund of 1 trillion naira which I proposed more than a year ago, but that idea has become attractive to many people afterwards. That's what that 1 trillion naira venture capital will be doing, financing the starting up of new businesses. We will also go the route of public-private partnerships for major arterial infrastructure, major roads that connect regions in this country, major seaports. We will go through the public-private partnership route so that government can focus more using its own resources on financing infrastructure in the rural areas of Nigeria. So these are the kinds of approaches we have towards infrastructure.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Kingsley Moralu, the candidate of the YPP. Next, of course, is the candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Mr. Donald Duke. Well, infrastructure is a major problem. TCN, some say that's the transmission company of Nigeria that's in the power chain. Some say is the weakest link. Gencos have threatened to shut down power plants all across the country. Rail is not exactly where it should be. Roads is still in bad shape. How will you fix the infrastructure problem, considering the fact that Nigeria hardly has the money for it?
Let me take just one of the infrastructure that bothers us more than all the others, power. We're still running our power sector largely as we ran it pre-independence, Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, where we largely, one broad organization generates, transmits, and distributes. Even though the sector has been broken down here and there, it's still largely the same concept. It is true that there are a multiplicity of power sources today, solar, gas, and all that. But take a nation that flares, until recently we were flaring about 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas daily. We've done this for over 40 years, and 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas is approximately 25 million liters of diesel. Nigeria was flaring this daily for well over